Welcome everyone to a Good Vibes Gaming discussion. I'm your host, Derrick Bittner, and I'm joined by my good friends and GVG co-founders Ash Paulson and Steve Bowling, and we're here to give our E3 2021 predictions. Nothing like doing it just a week before the show happens, but that also allows for a lot of other things to get announced that we don't have to predict anymore. So yeah, that kind of works out. And we have a list here of all the big publishers and developers that have been confirmed for the show. Of course, that includes Nintendo, Microsoft, and Bethesda, Ubisoft, Square Enix, Warner Brothers, Take-Two Interactive, Capcom, Bandai Namco, Gearbox, all those guys, Sega. And we're just gonna, I don't think we're gonna focus on any one. Obviously, I think we're gonna trend a little bit more towards Nintendo, just because that's how we are. But obviously, we play a lot of games. So what do you guys... We'll be talking about what we think might show up. So I guess as we begin, how are you guys feeling going into this E3? Do you think it's going to be a good one, or do you think they're still going to be playing catch up from missing last year and still dealing with the after effects of the pandemic? Because I've seen a lot of people think like, okay, they had this whole year, they have all this time off, they didn't do 2020, they have all this stuff to announce. And I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that. But what about you guys?
I'm in this
I'm with you. Oh, go ahead, Ash. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm in this weird place of in-between hype, I guess. We don't really know what the show's going to look like or be like, other than the fact that it's a virtual show. So, the whole fact that they're still doing media registration, though, like, what does that even mean this year? What's it going to feel like for companies to reveal or publishers to reveal big games at a digital E3? I don't know. This is just kind of a new frontier for E3, and given what happened in 2019 with the whole doxing thing, I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of in a wait and watch mode. I'm more excited to just E3 season, right? The announcements we're going to get. But as far as E3 itself, I don't quite know what to expect or what I even think I should expect from this year's show.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Derek, insofar as I don't know that E3 is going to be all that great this year. I'm just going to be honest. Game announcements don't work. Like, they don't go, oh, we skipped E3, so let's save last year's E3 for this year. Like, that's not a thing. Everything that was going to be announced at E3 2020 has likely been announced. The other part of the equation here is that I truly don't believe that there's going to be a whole lot to E3 this year. Like, I think if you're going in expecting a typical in-person level of hype, you should just not log in and not watch E3.
Agreed.
Spare yourself the disappointment.
Yeah, Ash touched on the media registration aspect, and that alone has been enough to tell me that this E3 is not like the others.
Right.
One, they opened it like a week before the show. Normally, for those of you that don't know, if you're in the media, E3 registration opens usually around March. And that's considered sometimes late, and you usually hear back within like a few days, and I still haven't heard back from mine. And we're like T-minus like 2 days until the show. Right. So that's not great. I've heard similar from other people in the media that just they don't know what the hell's going on. I've heard from people that are involved with E3 that they don't know what the hell's going on. I've heard from people in PR that they don't know what the hell's going on. So it's just like, it seems very slapdash, like very put together at the last minute. I think that's not to say that there won't be exciting stuff that happens, but it's definitely going to be nowhere near the level of a traditional E3 where we all go to LA.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I agree with you, Steve. There's going to be some really cool stuff announced. I don't doubt that. There's going to be either more information on stuff we've already known about, or there has to be at least one or two big things to get announced that would get us, to freak out or blow our minds. One would hope. If we get through an E3 without something like that, oh boy. But the rest of the year is looking good. I will say that. We have a strong year ahead of us, even without this E3. June, July, August, all packed. Really, this is just sort of filling out the winter months, which Nintendo's already kind of done thanks to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But obviously, I guess we should just rip this Band-Aid off right now. This is the 35th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda, and so far all we really know about this 35th anniversary, how they're celebrating it, is Skyward Sword HD. Do you think we're going to get
Right.
one more content, like a better idea of what exactly is going to be added to Skyward Sword, other than the amiibo functionality, or is that going to be left kind of as is with the new controls, and we're getting other Zelda announcements as well? I'll throw it to you first, Ash.
I mean, I honestly am not so confident that there isn't much they haven't shown for Skyward Sword HD. I feel like, the control tweaks and the amiibo functionality might be the majority of that content. That could be completely wrong. Maybe there's a new dungeon or something, but usually with these remakes, they tend to play it pretty conservative. Like, maybe there'll be like a challenge dungeon or something, but I'm not expecting any serious new content in Skyward Sword HD. So I feel like they've maybe shown a lot of what that game is going to have in the way of new content. As far as Zelda goes, I'm not expecting much more than maybe Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD on Switch. And I guess I had this written down as a prediction, so I guess I'll just kind of, use this as a segue to go into that. I think we're going to get a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, like a new trailer, but I don't think we're getting a release date. And if there is any date on that trailer, it's going to just be 2022. I truly do not believe that Breath of the Wild 2 is coming this year, but even if there's a chance it still might, I definitely 100% don't think we're getting a date at E3.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely bang on with that prediction. I think that we will get a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. It's got to be time.
Yeah.
We got our first teaser, 2 years ago now at E3?
Yeah.
Right.
So it would make sense for them to follow up, especially given, like Derrick said, it's the 35th anniversary of Zelda, and it feels like Nintendo has done almost nothing to mark the occasion. And that is so bizarre because Zelda is one of their top franchises, right up there with Mario. So it seems like, I don't want to say we're due, because Nintendo doesn't owe us a 35th anniversary celebration for Zelda.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would feel so weird for them not to market in some bigger way when they did so much. I say so much, but when they had kind of a big showing of support for Mario. I'm gonna go ahead and co-sign on the Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess stuff. But I also think we might see. This is, I should say I hope, but I think we might see Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask get the Mario 3D All-Stars treatment.
The
which is to
Miitopia
say-
treatment.
It's a bold prediction, Cotton.
No, I'm saying the 3D All-Stars treatment because I firmly believe that if we get them, they'll just be ROM dumps. They're not going to be more
so
than
you're not
that.
saying, I thought you were saying like up-res 720p-ish ports of the 3D remakes.
No, I'm leaning more towards
gotcha.
the Mario 64 side of 3D All-Stars.
Oh, that I could totally see.
Where they're
Yeah,
like,
man,
you
I
like
hope
this
that's not it,
game.
but, yeah.
If they do that, I would want, Zelda 1, Zelda 2, Link to the Past, everything before those games on that bundle as well.
See, the problem...
but all those are on the Switch Online.
Exactly. I was going to say, they have NSO, and they've already technically sold us those games. I don't see them packaging games that they have on their subscription service over, but since N64 is inexplicably still missing in action, I could see them selling us back those two games. And I think those two games almost... I could almost see us getting like a 2-package deal where you can buy Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, or you could buy Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
Obviously with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, we would get the Wii U versions. And with those, I think we'd get just straight up the N64 versions with like minimal window dressing around them.
I'm hoping
I'm
hoping for if Miitopia got this makeover, give it the freaking
God, right?
Ocarina and Majora's Mask.
I totally agree, but when I try to calculate, like in my mind, when I do the calculus of what Nintendo would do, I try to factor in like the maximum level of disappointment while it's still being like a cool product that I'd want. And I'm like, of course they would package them up and it would be hype as hell, but then it would just be N64 ROMs because they'd be like, oh, well, we could just repurpose what we did for Mario.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like,
Let's
here,
do that again.
Ocarina
It
has
sold like
Master
hotcakes.
Quest again. There you go.
There we go. Yeah,
That would be kind of a cool gimme if we got Master Quest again. Yeah, but Steve, you bring up a great point. That they can easily look at Mario 3D All Stars as sales and just be like, well, That clearly works. Yeah, some people were pissed, but they still bought the game. And let's just throw, some ROM dumps on there and call it a day. Not saying that 3D All-Stars throughout was that simple, but in general, I get what you're getting at.
Right. So, you know what? Let's take this one step further. If they do this, are they going to fully copy 3D All-Stars and make it a limited time release?
Oh,
I could totally see them
yeah.
doing that. Yeah, sure.
If it is like 3D All-Stars in the fact that it's just the ROMs and not like a full update like Miitopia, then yes, I can completely see it being a limited release.
God, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it is. Because guess what? We're buying it now.
Yep.
Not that we wouldn't anyway, but it kind of makes it like, dang it, I need to get it now. And I hate that tactic, and I hate that it works, but it works.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did. I did go out and get a physical copy of Mario 3D All-Stars ASAP because I, wanted to own those games on Switch, physically specifically. But in general, I would have bought it before March 31st, and they can do it again, and it'll work again, which is super annoying, but it is what it is, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got me twice. I bought it digital and physical because I was like, oh man, this is going to go away and it's going to be a collector's item. Probably not, but I have it.
Right.
You never know. I mean, with as many copies that sold, probably not a collector's item, but stranger things have happened.
Right.
Going on to Breath of the Wild 2, though, because that is sort of the big one. The only other Zelda content we know is coming is the Age of Calamity DLC. And I don't think that's enough to really hype it up. Maybe we'll get another indie project like the Necro Dancer. But we'll see how that all goes. Honestly, I think one of the more hype things they could do is a port of Four Swords Adventures. I think that'd be really cool.
That would be so hype.
Man, and the Switch is such a great platform for that.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be whether you can hook up your Switches together, like locally, or just play online. I think there'd be a lot of fanfare for Four Swords Adventures. Would love to see it.
You know what would be the best way to do that? To do a Four Swords adventure on the Switch? Mm-hmm. And this is just the most ridiculously expensive setup in the world. But if you could have one console host the game on the TV, and then have 4 players playing on individual handheld mode Switches, just to recreate that feeling of playing on the Game Boy.
That would be
that would be kind of a cool
cables.
Throwback.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like when you go into a cave, you have to look down at your Switch specifically and go through it on that, and then look back up to the big screen. Oh man,
I love that idea.
Yeah, that would be like my go-to game when I had groups of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and we're getting vaccinated now, so it could be possible. We could do it.
No, I mean, like I think like 3 or 4 times in my life, I was able to get the friends and the hardware and the cables together to have a proper Four Swords Adventures multiplayer session, and it was just the most incredible experience every time. And I would just love to have that in exactly the form you're thinking, Steve, which is why I think it'll never happen. But that's because I want it.
Of course. Again, you have to temper any hype with a certain amount of disappointment to get the Nintendo feeling.
Right. Another thing I'd like to see, and not that I'm predicting this because I don't think it's going to happen, or at least not at E3 if it ever does, but as much as I had an issue with the performance of Link's Awakening's remake, it was still a nice surprise to get that game remade in such a vibrant visual style on the Switch, and I'd like to see that trend continue with the Oracle games, which don't get nearly enough love. Mm-hmm. The Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages both are true gems that I would love to see be remade in a similar style with better performance, for sure. I don't think we're getting that announced as part of the 35th anniversary or at E3 or anything, but it sure would be nice.
Give us all the Capcom developed Zelda games, get us to Oracle games and Minish Cap. That'd be beautiful.
Right.
Oh man, I would love that. That being said, I don't think Nintendo's going to go nearly as all out for Zelda 35 as we hope.
No, I don't think so either.
Don't see that happening.
I'm doubtful about even the things we've talked about in a more concrete fashion so far.
Yeah, I mean, I do really think the extent of it is probably going to be Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD on Switch, and maybe like what you said, Steve, an N64 compilation of ROM dumps, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, I think those are the things I feel are most likely. But if they didn't happen, I also would not be surprised, which is sad. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. I feel like when we got when we got the announcement of Skyward Sword being remade for the Switch, I thought that would have been the time where Nintendo says, by the way, we're super hyped about the 35th anniversary of Zelda. Stay tuned, and they just didn't. And so I'm thinking
true.
that like we go to E3 and it's just like another E3 presentation from any other year, or
Right.
rather a slightly watered down version of another year.
Yeah, I don't know if I expect to ever see like a dedicated Zelda Direct the way we saw a Mario Direct. Short as it was, there still was a dedicated Mario Direct. And I don't know if I even expect to see that. Maybe a Breath of the Wild 2 Direct way down the line. I could probably see that happening maybe. But a Zelda 35th Anniversary Direct, I don't know. For whatever reason, Nintendo just doesn't seem keen on really celebrating their big milestones that much, at least in terms of their individual IPs.
Yeah, seems like it. Which is a shame, but it's also like it always felt like Nintendo got thrown off by COVID more than most.
Right.
True.
So I think that might be a factor in all this. Honestly, I think they'll leave most Zelda fans satisfied if they get any kind of Breath of the Wild 2 like announcement, like show off something of the caliber of that initial trailer of Breath of the Wild where it's Link versus the Guardian. Just something for just enough in there for us to, for all those people to dive into the trailer, pull out all the little secrets and tidbits and just get people salivating. And technically they've already done that with that first trailer, but something a little bit more action focused or something that doesn't necessarily show gameplay, but really points in the direction of, yes, Zelda is playable this time. And I think that would get enough to get just enough buzz for people to be really excited for it. I mean, they can really show anything. It's Breath of the Wild 2. It's completely up. It's completely possible. But moving on from Zelda, because I know we could spend this entire time just making Zelda predictions.
Easily.
We, of course, have the ever-looming shadows of Metroid Prime 4 and Bayonetta 3. And I'm going to be here right now to predict that we will see neither.
Wow. I actually... Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say that I actually think it's time for some type of update, at least on Metroid. I don't know what that means. I think we get the equivalent of Breath of the Wild 2's teaser trailer. Like something just showing that Metroid exists and is still being worked on. Or maybe even just something as small as a mention of Metroid Prime 4. I don't think we're going to see anything substantial about these games. I actually do agree with you fully, Derrick, that we're not going to see Bayonetta 3 at all for whatever reason. But I feel like Metroid is also celebrating a 35th anniversary this year. And I feel like Nintendo's going to have to trot something out. I don't think that we'll never, ever get like an actual celebration of Metroid. But I feel like they're not going to let the year go by unchecked. I think that we'll get, if not Metroid Prime 4, just something. Maybe the long-rumored Metroid Prime trilogy or something else. But I feel like they're going to do something with Metroid this year.
Maybe,
I hope that we at least get an update on Prime 4, though.
Maybe Samus Returns port, finally. That'd be kind of cool.
I want that.
Yeah. For whatever reason, that's more... Oh, go ahead, Derrick.
Oh, no. Basically, what I was going to say is, just going off of Steve's little tease, like something in the caliber of... Breath of the Wild 2's initial trailer.
Right. You
think it's for Prime 4, and then, bam, new 2D Metroid, or 2D Metroid remake of Fusion, or something like that. I don't know.
Ooh.
Yeah, for some reason, I'm feeling a 2D Metroid. I don't know if I'm thinking it's a remake of Samus Return, or like a port of Samus Returns, a remake of Fusion, or maybe just an entirely new 2D game. But for whatever reason, don't think we're going to see Prime 4. I just don't think we are, unfortunately. I agree with you, Steve, that it is time that we see Prime 4, or at least get some sort of update. But I just don't think we are going to see Prime 4, and if we do, I think it'll be a developer looking into the camera saying, please be excited, please wait a little longer, we're hard at work on it, we're just not ready to show it yet.
Concept art or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But I actually do think we might get a 2D Metroid announced or shown off here at during E3 season in some way.
It feels time because
it does.
Samus Returns had all that extra story stuff that hints at something beyond what we've played before, because there's like some rogue faction of Chozo out there, it seems like, that they heavily hinted at, and that's either going to get followed up on in a like Fusion remake, or we're finally getting Metroid 5. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but it's like when I was playing it and seeing those scenes, like, are they really building up to this? Please don't play with me. Are they really building up to this? And I don't know.
Imagine if we actually got Metroid Dread, like that is Metroid 5. All these years later, it's finally announced as Metroid Dread.
Oh God.
Oh man, that would be amazing. If we're seeing something, so I will go as far as to say, if we're not seeing Metroid Prime 4, then it would absolutely be a 2D Metroid. There's no way Nintendo has more than one 3D Metroid game in the works.
No.
They don't care about the franchise enough. But I could definitely see that, like, a 2D Metroid game, in theory, would require considerably less effort than a Prime, right? And they have to know that fans are probably, upset by what's going on with Prime 4 at this point. Like, it has just been missing in action for, 4 years now?
Something like that, yeah.
I think probably if I had to guess, if I was a betting man, I would say that Prime 4 was probably originally scheduled to launch this year. 35th anniversary of Metroid, we'll have the big, new, awesome Metroid game come out at this point, Then, of course, whatever happened between Nintendo and Bandai Namco, they did not like the progress that was being made, and they're like, we gotta restart this from scratch. There's no way we're going to make our initial launch target. So maybe they get Mercury Stream involved, or is it Mercury Steam or Stream?
Steam.
Okay, Mercury Steam. Maybe they get them involved and say, hey, you did a great job on the 3DS. How about you take your crack at a new one on the Switch? Or something to that effect. So I imagine, Samus Returns on 3DS was so damn good, it would be absurd not to tap them to do another one.
Agreed.
So hopefully but if you say, 2019, hey, can you make us a new 2D Metroid in 2 years? I think that's feasible. I think that's absolutely possible. So I could see something new coming out this year, definitely getting a huge trailer, and just, that might be Nintendo's big E3 game.
Wouldn't that be something?
Hey, we don't have a lot, but we have a brand new 2D Metroid. Go nuts.
I will see if Metroid can finally get those sales numbers on the Switch.
Well, they'll get them from me, that's for sure.
I don't expect them to really acknowledge the anniversary, though. I don't think that'll be.
I feel like, honestly, there's a part of me that thinks they're not going to acknowledge Zelda either. They'll just do some things, and people, fans like us, will connect it in our minds to that. Yeah. Because when you think about it, Zelda's 25th, the only quote-unquote celebratory thing we got was Skyward Sword, and in the form of the 25th anniversary logo appearing within the game, and that was it.
Right.
Yeah, right. That's true.
So, what if that's all we get? Like with the Skyward Sword re-release, Nintendo just replaces the 2 with the 3, and they're like, enjoy.
Exactly. And speaking of Nintendo Series' anniversaries, I'm gonna go out and throw out a really, really bold, scary prediction here, and I don't know if you guys are gonna agree with me on this. Even though it is the series' 15th anniversary this year, we're not getting anything Rhythm Heaven related. I know, bold prediction.
Wow.
Right? Really going out on the limb
coloring
there.
Outside the lines.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. But I was actually I was going to make that joke anyway. Obviously, we're not going to get anything Rhythm Heaven related. But I did forget that it is the series' 15th anniversary, and it came to me when we were talking about anniversaries, and I'm like, that's so sad. But yeah, Rhythm Heaven ain't happening. So, yeah. R.I.P.
Yeah.
So
I guess let's expand it beyond what we know. Obviously we have Splatoon 3 coming next year. I don't know if we'll see anything of that, but obviously Nintendo has a lot of other franchises. There's been talks of the new DK game, and tons of other franchises. Which ones do we think will actually make an appearance, if any?
I think full stop that we are going to see Splatoon 3. I think we're either going to get a new trailer, maybe even a public demo, some sort of some sort of pre-release demo. They did that with Splatoon 2 and 1, I believe, if I remember correctly.
There was a beta,
A beta, yeah. So
it's a little bit closer to release, so it's...
Yeah, it may be too soon for a demo, but even if not a demo, I do think we're going to see Splatoon 3 reemerge in some form.
Okay.
I agree with that. I don't think that we're going to get a playable demo. I think it's too early.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a release window, like, and I mean like the broadest one, because Nintendo likes to give you the giant release window and then gradually narrow it down over time. I think they'll give us a release year, essentially. Like Splatoon 2 coming 2022.
Didn't they already say that?
We'll find out. It's like,
I think they already said
Did they?
Splatoon 3 is
Yeah.
2022.
And I think
then never mind. They might go to the next narrowest window, like winter 2022.
Well, that's the thing.
Right.
I think because they did say 2022 and they've not narrowed it down yet. I'm actually going to say we're not going to see Splatoon 3.
Maybe not.
That's fair.
I don't think so. I don't know. The thing is, I don't know what they're going to focus on. It could be DK. It could be Metroid. It could be whatever. We could get a new Mario game. I don't know.
You know what I think this is?
What's that?
I think this is the year of forgotten franchises for Nintendo.
Ooh,
The
that'd be
low effort ones. I'm gonna go out and say we're gonna see something like from their. I hate to call it their B team because it is anything but. I love these games, but I think we get something less along the lines of like a Zelda, a Metroid, a Pokemon. We get something more like a WarioWare or like a Rhythm Heaven, if you will.
I wish. Yeah.
WarioWare on Switch makes so much sense, and it's shocking they haven't done it yet because that's essentially what One Two Switch is.
Like, I think about one, Derrick, you mentioned earlier, and I 100% agree with this. COVID hit Nintendo hard. They very clearly, it disrupted their business. And I think about, at some point during the year, they had to switch priorities. I'm certain of it. They had to say, okay, what can we do that traditionally would take us a lot less time to build so that we can build it efficiently remotely while we figure out how to work from home? And WarioWare, like games like that have to be near the top of the list. I imagine that, in terms of the level of effort and development time and resources, that WarioWare games are extremely non-intensive. Sorry, guys. I know you guys hear that.
Oh, it's okay.
Do you guys mind if I go calm my dog down real quick?
No, go for it.
I'll be right back. All right, so sorry about that, folks. If you noticed the cut in the conversation, I had somebody just pounding on my front door, and I had to go figure out who they were. Turns out they were at the wrong house.
Of course.
But
Like
anyway,
you do.
like you do, you just bang on someone's door until they answer and tell you need to go, another street over. That's fine. Don't check your GPS.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong place. Anyway, so as I was saying, this seems like, to me, and the more I think about it, the more plausible it becomes to me that this is the year of the low-effort Nintendo game. And I don't say low effort as in lazy devs or in any disparaging way, but I mean you pull from your back catalog. The games that traditionally would be like, in an era where we still had Switch in an era where we still had Switch and 3DS, these would be the games that would traditionally come to the 3DS and not the Switch, right? So your games that require fewer development resources, which is what I mean by low effort.
Right.
Just
like
smaller
Miitopia.
teams. Yes, Miitopia, or I hate to say it this way, but like that jump rope game that they introduced, right? Just stuff that is quick and easy to make, or at least quicker and easier to make. So I firmly believe we'll get something on the level of like a WarioWare, a Kid Icarus, maybe, stuff that Nintendo traditionally.
Yeah, I don't know about Kid Icarus.
Don't you do that?
Yeah,
Don't you give me
I'm
hope.
using that. I'm using that more as an example, not what I think we'll see.
Right.
But I would. I mean, how long has it been since we got an actual original WarioWare game? That's the launch of the Wii U. That's Game and Wario.
Yeah,
right?
which wasn't even really a WarioWare game.
Yeah,
so.
which itself wasn't a WarioWare game, and then the 3DS got
DIY
top
was
100.
kind of its own.
The top
Yeah,
100.
Mario
No,
Party.
that was Mario Party.
Yeah,
Top
I meant
100.
gold.
Oh, Gold.
Not
WarioWare.
top
Oh,
100,
right. WarioWare
but
Gold.
like a
yeah.
Actually,
compilation.
Speaking of Mario Party, do we think we're going to get Super Mario Party 2?
That seems like a pretty safe bet to me. Like, well, I mean, I guess maybe not until a little later, only because Super Mario Party 1 did just finally get that update.
That's
randomly.
See, I don't think that matters at all. Yeah, maybe it got that update, but that's a test bed. That is a test bed if I've ever seen one, and that I fully think if we get a Super Mario Party 2, it will come with online.
I agree. Oh no, I agree with you. I just wonder if maybe they might wait a little longer to announce.
No.
I think it's coming no matter what.
I don't see them thinking that a new online mode for a 2-year-old game is something they're going to revitalize its sales. That is all right, we got this working for 2. We need to test it out. Let's toss it in there for 1 and see how it does and take notes and hopefully improve.
And Super Mario Party did sell very well.
It did. And I think it makes sense to get a Super Mario Party 2 out there. I don't know if we've seen it in ND Cube do anything since Super Mario Party. So it makes sense, and hopefully they realized what people really enjoyed about Super Mario Party, less than all the other extra games that nobody really played other than 1 or 2 times, and really enhance the board game gameplay once again. We'll see if it actually happens or not, though.
I can see that happening.
I'm going to counter that.
Okay.
Because ND Cube did make Clubhouse Games, which released in 2020.
Oh,
good
realize.
point. Forgot about that.
So I think that we're still a ways off from a new Mario Party because they were involved with Clubhouse.
It was a really intensive game.
Well, yeah, obviously it took a ton of effort.
Yeah, 51 games.
No, I think that they're probably gathering data right now on online play. I agree with you 100% that Super Mario Party's online update is 1,000% a test bed for online functionality and seeing how it works. But I think that also says that they're probably pretty early on with Super Mario Party 2 development. 1, that they released a game last year, and 2, that this online update just came out, which is probably going to be used to gather some type of metrics for how well their netcode works. And then, but I agree that netcode is destined for Super Mario Party 2 at some point.
Absolutely.
I have my doubts that the game is far enough along in development to show right now.
How big is NDQ? Because could they have 2 teams? Because, obviously I know nothing about game development and what it might take, but I can't imagine it would take too huge of a team to make something like Clubhouse Games, because you just need to make them functional, have a nice little presentation, because these are all games that have rules established. They don't have to make anything new. They just have to make sure these simple games work as designed and add in a few bells and whistles. Granted, that boils down to a incredibly simple aspect of it. Again, emphasizing I don't know game development whatsoever, but would it be possible to split their team to have something simple like Clubhouse Games come out during the pandemic, and also have some more of the team working on at least pre-production for Super Mario Party 2 to keep things moving? So
I'm looking at their output, and I'm gonna guess that they're probably small. So ND Cube seems to put out like a game a year in most years. So for instance, just going through their history, they put out Wii Party in 2010, then Wii Play Motion in 2011, Mario Party 9 in 2012, but then they made Wii Party U the following year, and Mario Party Island Tour also in 2013. Then they doubled up in 2015 with Mario Party 10 and Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. Sorry,
oh man.
They did Mario Party Star Rush in 2016. I didn't know this. This is kind of a big one for me. They did Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. So I always assumed that was just some outsourced game, but apparently ND Cube is responsible for it. But then they put out Mario Party The Top 100 in 2017. And then the last 2 games they've worked on are Super Mario Party from 2018 and Clubhouse, which released in 2020. So it depends. I mean, it has been 3 years. That's crazy to think. Since Super Mario Party, almost like 2.5 at this point. Because if I remember correctly, I think Super Mario Party released around the end of 2018. In October, November or something. Yeah.
Sounds
so, man, when you put it that way, but I do remember, wasn't Super Mario Party not playable at that year's E3, but was playable at PAX in September?
Don't know that one for sure, but maybe.
I can't quite remember. That sounds like it could be the case, but because I think I remember Super Mario Party being announced, but not immediately being playable.
I would give this a 50-50 shot. Like, I feel like it's probably time for a new Super Mario Party. Just looking at the release history of the series right here in front of me, it's definitely time.
Definitely
they usually
time,
do about 2 to 3 years between Mario Party releases. So the timing is right. I just wonder if we'll see it at E3. Though that does... Yeah, I guess you could. I wonder how you Man, now that you mention it, the
Yeah.
more we talk about it, the more I start to believe it. Like, I could see a new Mario Party.
I mean,
this-
they
my
even
only
boil it
question
down
is
even
if-
simpler. Like you mentioned, the top 100, not pull in all the mini games, but did not pull in the boards. If they made a Mario Party game, they pulled in classic boards and maybe even the classic games, who knows, from those past games and just stuck online in it, I think that would still sell incredibly well.
Oh, I'd buy the hell out of that.
Oh, I think it would sell. I think it would definitely sell. It's just there's also the fact that a new Super Mario Party feels like something they could just drop in a random summer direct later on in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
and so I'm pretty 50-50 on it. Like Steve said, I'm leaning toward yes, we could see Super Mario Party 2 announced at E3, but I also would be just as unsurprised if it wasn't and we just got it later. But I do either way 100% think it's coming. And on that note, it would be nice to get a Switch port of the top 100, only because I love the idea of having all those top minigames in one.
Except top 100 sucks. So
Yeah. Well, there is that
I mean,
too.
it would need a better game surrounding those 100 mini games, which
Right.
I'd even choose the best one. So yeah.
Right. Well, I guess it's hard, right, when you have so many different people who probably have just as many different opinions on what the
It was
best 100
pretty
Mario
generally
Party
recognized
minigames
that
are.
it kind of sucked,
Yeah.
just because it didn't have the board games to connect them all.
Right.
The boards
right.
to connect them all.
Yeah, so I could definitely see it. I think you start when you start wading into the territory of trying to guess without context which games are easier or simpler or don't take as much quote unquote effort to develop. I think that's kind of a risky business to predict based on that metric because it's so relative. But based on the release timeline of the series and ND Cube's or output rate, I do think it's possible that we could see it. Super Mario Party 2 here at E3 or potentially later on, but it's happening one way or the other. One series I do think we might see at E3, also given based on kind of release timing and how it just seems like it's about time for a new game in this series, is my favorite Nintendo series, Kirby. It feels like it's time. It's been about 2.5 years now since Star Allies came out. Maybe a little more. It came out in March 20. Oh, more. It's been almost 3.5 years, actually, since Star Allies came out. So that seems like enough of a buffer that it's now time to maybe see what's next for Kirby. And it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying I'm 100% sure we're going to see Kirby, but it would make sense, I think, to see a new Kirby game or the announcement of whatever's next for Kirby.
I mean, it fits into Steve's whole thing that he mentioned, where take the franchises that were traditionally, handheld, and sort of give them a little buff and put them in the limelight.
Kirby's in kind of a weird place there, though, because I would say Kirby is almost
He is
considered
evenly
A-tier.
split.
Yeah, like I would say Kirby has graduated into being one of Nintendo's more or less A-tier series in terms
And I would
of
agree with that. I'm not
prevalence.
labeling him B tier. I'm just labeling him as tends to be on handhelds more often than
True.
consoles.
He's getting kind of a weird in-between place. You're right.
He is evenly split. But I think it's also been a long time since we've gotten, we got Kirby games since Star Allies, but they've always been these sort of free-to-play...
Right, like mainline, yeah.
Yeah, type things. A new mainline Kirby would be great. I don't know if I want to evoke could it be 3D this time? I don't know.
I know.
I just want something that kind of evolves the formula that they perfected with Robobot and kind of took a step
Me
back
too.
on with Star Allies. They found something that really worked and really perfected, but it got kind of old. So they need to do something newish, but I don't know what that is other than just throwing out the usual, let it be 3D. And I don't know if it will be, but it'd be nice.
See,
Yeah.
I personally think that Kirby kind of exists in this area, this weird gray area between Nintendo's A and B tiers. I think that Kirby is a character that has come the closest from graduating, so to speak, from Nintendo's backlist of their roster to the front side, but I don't think Kirby's quite there yet. And for that reason, I think that we could very possibly see a 3D Kirby game, because Nintendo has to know that Kirby has this enormous potential to be one of their biggest franchises, but for whatever reason it hasn't. And when you think about it in strictly business terms, you start to think, okay, well, what can we do to potentially get this character that we know could be very popular in front of more people? And I mean, to me, the answer would be okay, let's make let's change up the way the games work and see if that helps. And obviously 3D would be a huge change for Kirby. Like, I'm not a big Kirby fan, but even I, only really think of Kirby as a 2D character. Like, as a character who all the games that I should probably care about are two-dimensional. Which is cool. I love 2D games, but I hate to say it, but in this day and age, when I think of like a big publisher like Nintendo, when they put out a 2D game, I'm thinking, okay, this is like them testing the waters. This isn't their best effort, because if they were really putting their full power behind it, they would definitely make a 3D game. Like, and
maybe, but I get that that's a game like Tropical Freeze, though. Like, and it's inarguable that game is just top notch from beginning to close in terms of level design and development effort. And I don't know. I see
let me ask you this though: grab 10 random people, right, and ask them which game is better, Tropical Freeze or Breath of the Wild. Like,
there you go.
I feel like it's kind of an apples and oranges situation, but I get what you're saying.
Well, the point
even
is
just then, Odyssey versus Tropical Freeze. If you grab the random typical people, I think most would say 3D Mario
about,
over
lay people. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, and honestly, as much as I hate to say it, Nintendo cares very little about us in comparison to lay people, because they know that we are educated about games, we have our own opinions, we like what we like, and we're probably going to buy their products regardless of how they market them.
Right.
Whereas, they want Kirby to appeal to an 8-year-old kid who has, not played video games, or more likely the parent of an 8-year-old kid who has not played video games. And they're going to say, well, okay, I look at Tropical Freeze and it looks like an old Mario game. It, again, very reductive layperson terminology here. It looks like an old Mario game. And, they look at this 3D potential Kirby game and they're like, wow, this looks like, this is definitely worth $60. I'm going to go buy this one.
Right.
Whether that opinion is right or wrong is neither here nor there, but from a marketing standpoint, that's probably the image that they want to project. And I don't know, like, I feel like Kirby is due for a real 3D game, like a full-on
It'd be
3D
nice.
adventure.
Well, Star Allies looks like it's sitting at just under 3 million copies, but that's as of the end of 2019. So it's probably hovering somewhere slightly above 3 million copies sold right now, which is good. But it's definitely right within that wheelhouse of good enough, but certainly within the realm that they could stand to kind of, maybe reinvent Kirby. And again, maybe take him finally into a 3D context just to shake things up a little and see if they can't grab more sales out of the next title.
Moving on from Kirby, do you think we'll see a new Fire Emblem?
No.
I think that's the other big one, because Three Houses was massive, did incredibly well. And I'm not sure if it's... I'll put it this way. I don't think we'll see a new game. The best we can hope from Fire Emblem is maybe another remake.
I'm thinking
even
a
that
remake,
seems a
if
bit
anything.
tricky,
Yeah. So. I think whatever the next Fire Emblem game we get, whether it's E3 or later on, is going to be a new like Fire Emblem Echoes-esque remake. I think that's definitely what's next for the series. Whether or not we'll see it at E3... It doesn't. I kind of go by, I go back and forth, because like if it was like a mainline, like not mainline, but a brand new Fire Emblem game, I would say no. But I feel like a Fire Emblem remake is maybe the kind of slightly less top priority project that could get announced at E3 this year, or at Nintendo's E3, whatever that ends up being. So I'm kind of on the fence, but I'm gonna go toward no, even for a remake. I feel like maybe that could be later this summer.
Yeah, maybe. I honestly don't know.
I'm torn on this because Koei Tecmo helped out with Fire Emblem Three Houses, and I feel like Nintendo has really solidified their relationship with them in this generation. They've been bringing a lot of external parties a lot closer in terms of letting them work with their stuff. Bamco made Smash. They were working on Prime 4 before they got fired. Koei Tecmo did Age of Calamity, which was, by all measures excellent. And they did Fire Emblem Three Houses, which was probably the most popular entry in the series to date, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think that there is absolutely an internal push to get a follow-up made, but I think that given the fact that Three Houses was the first one that broke into the mainstream consciousness in this kind of way, I'm betting that Nintendo and Intelligent Systems are being very careful in how they create the next one. They want to recapture that lightning, that they created with Three Houses. And Koei Tecmo has been busy, very busy. So I don't think that they've probably, I think they've probably begun very principle, beginning talks on whatever the future of Fire Emblem is. But I will say this, for me, Three Houses came out of nowhere. When I saw it at E3, I was like, what the hell is this? I didn't expect a Fire Emblem then. And so, I kind of take my lack of expectation as, well, I mean, I didn't see the last one coming, so who knows?
Right.
That said, I do think it's too early, and I think a remake would likely be more of like a shadow drop type of situation where they would just say, hey, we got this game coming out in a week, or something like that.
Yeah, I could see them, if it is a remake, I could see hey, this is coming, and it's coming in September.
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
I guess I could see that as like a brief mention in the E3 Direct. I don't think it'll be a major spotlight type of focus thing.
I feel like it could get at least a bit of a spotlight just because of how big Three Houses was. They're going to want that Three Houses crowd to check out, ostensibly the next remake should be, Genealogy of the Holy War, which I've not played before, but I believe people have mentioned that it's very much almost like a proto Three Houses in some way. So
interesting.
Selling it on that aspect, I think, could really bring a lot of people to Three Houses, to that remake, if it is a thing. I don't know for sure. I don't want to put a stamp on that saying yes, that's exactly what it's like. I've stayed away because whenever I do play it, if it does get a remake, I want to go in fresh. So I've not really looked into it too closely, but we'll have to see. I will say I'll be shocked if Star Fox makes an appearance. I don't think that's coming unless they port Zero somehow. But no, I don't think Star Fox is coming.
Star Fox for me is sadly on the trajectory that F-Zero is.
Yeah.
I feel like Nintendo has hit the wall with Star Fox and hasn't figured out how to make it work, which is ludicrous, by the way. Just let him go into space and land on planets as he pleases and you're done. But I mean, Nintendo seems to not be able to figure out what to do with the franchise or with the character. And it's kind of sad because I feel like it's one of those ones where the fans have a very clear voice about what they expect from Star Fox, and Nintendo is just plugging their damn ears and not listening. Just solicit your fans, Nintendo. We all have ideas on how you could make a Star Fox game we would buy. But I agree. When I played Star Fox Zero, they literally asked me at E3 when I played it what I thought of it, and I was like, this is not fun. I was just very honest. I was like, I don't like this. I was like, I don't find it very enjoyable. And they're like, well, what don't you like? They got very interested. And I was like, this, and I just held up the gamepad. I'm like, this is very hard to keep track of while I'm playing a game on the TV. I was like, this is a big problem. Like, I can only target on the gamepad. I was like, I end up running into things because I'm looking at the gamepad to see where I'm aiming. I was like, it is a mess. Just give me a controller. Give me a normal controller and let me play it the way I would play a traditional Star Fox, and I'll probably love it. But, they're like, oh, that's interesting. And, of course, they released it in exactly the state it was at E3. And
Star Fox Zero was emphatically not what I wanted from that series. And I agree with you. I don't think they really know what to do with it, and it doesn't seem like they're willing to really listen to what fans have said they want on that front necessarily. So either they just keep rebooting Star Fox 64 forever, or they just shelve it, and they seem to be in the shelving it, period of things right now. And I agree. I don't think we're going to see Star Fox. Yeah, it's a shame, but I kind of do think Star Fox is on that F-Zero trajectory right now, which, by the way, I also don't think we'll see it at E3 or part of Nintendo's E3. F-Zero is just not going to happen. It may happen in the future. I'm not saying it's dead, but I don't see it happening right now. One thing I'm surprised we haven't mentioned yet, but that I will predict straight up, is that we are going to get a Smash character. We have 2 left. We're going to get the second to last one.
I mean, it feels so obvious. I will put out a prediction, though. I think we're going to get both. You said that. I've seen that take elsewhere as well. I'm going to say I disagree. It's not impossible, but with only 1 left, I don't think they're gonna blow their whole load halfway through the year. But maybe they will. But I'm going to say one. I'm just going to say one. One of the characters is they feel like will get the same sort of reaction that Byleth did, which I know Byleth has their fans, but on the whole, it's like, really? That's how it's ending? I think having 2 there to soften the blow. Again, I always look to the really smart way that they debuted both Banjo and Hero at the same time that appealed to both sides of the pond in order to like, hey, Japanese fans going nuts over Hero. Who the heck's Banjo? It's some new Banjo, of course. And then over here, it's like, who the heck's Hero? But oh my God, Banjo! Really smart. If that's a situation they find themselves in again with these last two characters, that is absolutely a good idea to reveal both now.
Yeah,
right.
I think it just depends on who it is, right? It depends on who the characters are. Yeah.
Precisely. I'm 50-50 on this. I think that if Nintendo believes they have a weak hand, that they will release both at the same time, or at least reveal both at the same time. However, and this is what's terrible. So first off, I firmly believe we're getting at least one. I agree 100% that it's time to reveal at least one of the next two Smash characters. I think that I agree with Derrick with the caveat that only if it's like, and we discussed this previously, if it's like a Gen 8 Pokemon and they know people are going to be upset by that, then they'll reveal the other one right away. Or if it's some other character that they believe only has limited appeal in a specific region, then they'll do that. So I could see that potential scenario happening. However, man, if they don't, I'll be more hyped if we get one than if we get both, because I refuse to believe that Nintendo is going to let Smash go out on a low note. So if they reveal just one, whoever that last character is has to be hype as fuck.
I mean, again, your last character was in the main game was Incineroar. The last DLC character was Byleth. Ostensibly, those are not exactly the most hype-inducing characters. They front-load those so people buy the pass.
That's fair, but it could also speak to Nintendo being out of touch with the audience to a degree. They were just like, oh man, people are going to love Incineroar. People love that game, and people are going to love Byleth. Fire Emblem Three Houses is selling gangbusters. And
what if they're just out of touch now? They could still just be out of touch.
True, they could be. I'm hopeful that the reveal of Kazooie and Hero at the same time kind of speaks to the fact that Nintendo maybe put their ear to the ground and realized one of these is not going to go over well. So we need to make sure that we've got Japan and the US covered at the same time.
Yeah, it really could go either way. It's so tough to know. I mean, I am basically 100% on there being at least one character, but I do agree. It depends on the context of who these characters actually are. If they do have a weak hand, Derrick, you might be right, and they show both. But if they believe they don't have a weak hand, like so let's say the next character is Tails, please, fingers crossed, or Eggman or something, then all you need is that one character, and then you save the last reveal for later in the year.
We'll see. But speaking to Pokemon, I don't think we'll see Pokemon in a direct-like format. If we see Pokemon at all during E3 this year, it's if the Treehouse makes a return, because that's usually where they show off Pokemon games and be like, okay, here's a little sample and here's a little bit of gameplay. Here's your first gameplay of Pokemon. That's what they've done every time they've had a new Pokemon game to show off that's more mainline. And it's probably not a bad idea to do that with either of Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl or Legends. But it's also the big question of whether or not Nintendo has a Treehouse this year.
That's a valid question. I do have something related to this though, and it's a prediction that I used last year, but I'm going to reuse it this year. I firmly believe, and I've been advocating for this for years, literal years, but I believed last year, and I think I was a little premature, so I'm going to reheat this one this year. We're going to get a public E3 demo from Nintendo. So I firmly believe that last year I believed this too, and I was wrong. But I think this makes a little more sense this year. I think that in the throes of the pandemic, obviously Nintendo, was unable to do too much with their E3 plans. But I think that they've had this year, and they had probably thought at some point that like, hey, we'll all be fine by 2021. Everyone's going to be able to go out the door. So let's get our dev teams working on those vertical slices for E3 2021 for the stuff we're going to show. And I believe that those were made and finished. The issue that Nintendo has, though, that no one else has, is that they don't have a means of letting media remotely demo their games. because they release them only on the Switch, which makes a ton of sense. But there's no such thing as a Switch that can play a remote demo that's not on the eShop. So for Nintendo to make available for folks like us the ability to play their content before it's out, they have to give us a demo or a key. And I think that this year will be the year that Nintendo says, like, hey, you know what? No one's going to be able to see our stuff. We need to get people talking about it. Let's take those E3 demos that we were going to make and let's upload them to the eShop for people to play. I don't think we're going to get like everything they show.
Right.
But I would be shocked if we didn't get at least one or two public demos where people could say, oh, hey, you know, for instance, taking the example of a new WarioWare game. I firmly believe Nintendo would take one of those like B-tier franchises and give us a free demo during E3. Maybe it's limited time. Maybe it only works for like an hour or something. But, you know, they give us a chance to get what we would have got had we shown up. Like play a little vertical slice of one of their new games, and then, you know, talk about it online for months until it comes out.
See, I was about to say you are so wrong with this.
Oh, man.
It is a
Oh,
terrible idea to do this, because we know how people data mine this stuff, and we know Nintendo can't keep this stuff away from data miners, that they find out all this stuff. So putting out a public demo, that is a recipe for all this stuff to just get blown open and being like, okay, here's everything that's in the game. We've seen it happen with like Pokemon in the past, and it's just every time. But I think something on the level of like a WarioWare, that makes a bit more sense. That's not exactly something that can be blown open and be like, oh no, this has been spoiled. I think that works a little bit better, but God, no, not any of their other franchises. I think that's a terrible idea.
Exactly why I specified B tier. We're not getting like a Breath of the Wild 2 demo to play at home.
Oh God, no, yeah. I mean, it also depends on how well they prepare the said demo, right? I mean, if they want to, they can cover their tracks and, you know, avoid having anything major leak through a data mine. It's just a matter of how well they decide to cover their tracks. But I agree, the risk probably isn't even worth it for one of their, you know, main series like Zelda. I don't think we're going to get anything like a Breath of the Wild 2 demo, but I could definitely see like something like a WarioWare. I mean, they could also just probably sell that outright anyway and people will buy it, but they could certainly get people talking about some of their E3 offerings by offering, you know, playable demos. And like I said, I mean, it is a little too early, I think, but I would not be entirely surprised to see a vertical slice Splatoon 3 demo, if not at E3, at some point, because they certainly did it for Splatoon 2 and 1. So it may be a little soon for E3, but I do think that'll happen.
Oh, we'll absolutely get a network test beta for Splatoon 3 at some point.
Yeah.
I agree that it's probably too early. I think what we're going to see, the strategy, if Nintendo releases demos at all, because all this is speculation, of course, but the strategy would be the games that don't sell themselves, so to speak. You know, the games where they have to convince the audience, like, hey, you should play this, because they already know that 99% of the people watching E3 are probably going to buy Pokemon Legends Arceus, and they're going to buy Breath of the Wild 2, and they're probably going to buy games, even Splatoon 3, right? Splatoon 3 exists more as like a means for Nintendo to just test their servers, but games like WarioWare, stuff like that, they're smaller, more experimental projects. Those are the games where people, you know, outside of folks like us, don't go in and necessarily go, day one, I'm buying that. So I think those games where they have to kind of do a little bit more to get the gamer on their side are going to be the ones where they would consider doing a demo. But I firmly believe we're getting some kind of demo from them this year.
Right.
We've been going for about an hour now, and there is one last thing I want to bring up before we kind of end off this Nintendo bit, and that is, I wonder if we'll see something from Monolith Soft. Whether, you know, I don't know about a new Xenoblade game, but I know they've been working on that other game as well, that other sort of Western fantasy-ish game that they were hiring for. I do wonder if we'll see something from Monolith Soft right now, or if that's still going to be held off on for a bit while they probably help with Breath of the Wild 2. I don't know.
That's what I was going to say, is we know they're working on Breath of the Wild 2, so I was just kind of wondering if maybe they're spread too thin, although we do know that they've been growing recently as well, so there is that. But it feels to me like maybe this is more of a hunker down year for them in terms of all hands on deck to help finish Breath of the Wild 2, so I don't think I expect to see anything from them this year, or at least at E3, I should say.
Makes sense.
I agree with that. I think that this year is going to be quiet on purpose.
Yeah, I just feel like maybe Breath of the Wild 2 is their development focus right now. But I would love to be wrong. I'd love to see the next big Xenoblade project or whatever. But it just doesn't quite feel like it's time yet because of Zelda.
Right. That said,
Yeah.
I mean, Breath of the Wild originally in 2017 came out in the beginning of the year, and we had Xenoblade 2 at the end of the year. Those were happening at the same
true.
time. So
That's very true.
I don't necessarily think that prevents them.
Breath of the Wild, they didn't work on the original Breath of the Wild, did they?
Yes, they did.
Did they help with? Oh, did they? Okay, I forgot.
They gave their input on making these big open worlds.
Oh, right. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I wasn't sure of the comparison in terms of how heavily involved they were with 1 versus 2. But yeah, certainly. I mean, and as I said, they have been growing recently. We know that. So maybe they can work in parallel, and maybe we will see something. But I'm going to lean toward no for that.
Okay.
I know we have been going for an hour, but one more thing I do think we need to bring up, or people will kill us, or internet kill us, is, and I hate to bring it up and even open this Pandora's box, but the Switch Pro.
We won't see it.
How are we all feeling?
As we said on TNT, if we see it, it'll be before the show. But Nintendo does not show off consoles during their directs or shows.
Right. So do you think we'll see it before the show?
I don't know.
I'm going to say no. I'm still leaning toward no on this. I was just talking about this on Twitter this morning because someone had tagged me about not believing the rumors that are swirling around, and I want to be fully clear. Emily has a great track record. Takashi Mochizuki has a pretty good track record too, and I'm not saying that I know more than they do or that I've have reason to not believe their sources, because I have no clue who their sources are. Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it just seems weird to me. Like I did my own poking around, and I don't know anybody, and typically people who, would have access to this kind of kit. I don't know anyone with a Switch Pro dev kit. And these are people that I would trust to tell me the truth if they had one or not. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to some folks at Nintendo, of course, under conditions of anonymity that just tell me that this just isn't happening. Mm-hmm. And again, I believe these folks would be in a position to know, but I'm not digging too deep on this. That's not the kind, I'm not the rumor mill guy.
Of course.
But I mean, beyond that, just reading it, something doesn't seem right. Like when I read what Emily has said and what Takashi Mochizuki has said, it almost reads like the same person fed them both the exact same information. And that it was like point for point, literally in order, the same. And that always reads strangely to me. Like, and we collectively as an industry have been fooled before. Star Fox Grand Prix. Hello. Mother 3. Pokemon Stars got Tom Phillips from Eurogamer, who is also reporting this same rumor now. And not to bash Tom Phillips, he does great work. It's just when I hear a lot of stuff without seeing any type of evidence. And normally by now, I mentioned this on TNT, but when the Switch details started to leak, it turned out there had been pictures of the Switch out on the internet the whole time, and people just didn't believe anyone that posted them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We have nothing of the Switch Pro, which means that it's not yet. It is almost certainly not yet in production. And people are saying that, I believe Mochizuki's report says that it will release in October and start production in July. Given the national or global chip shortages, that seems like a really short window to produce a product to scale that you're planning to release. Like, if they said July for a December release, I'd be like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But this seems like such a short window, and I'm not an expert on any of those things, but I do know, that products typically go into manufacturing 6 months to a year before they come out. If you want to produce them in mass to be sold, all over the place. And I mean, if they're giving themselves just 90 days to start production and get this thing out the door, there will be an incredible shortage, worse than PlayStation 5. And
very true.
Because I believe the PlayStation 5 was in production for at least 9 months before it came out. and you still can't find those. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It just doesn't smell right. That's what I can say. I've done a little bit of homework, and I can't find anybody that can confirm the existence of this thing in terms of it being ready to go. Like, everyone I've talked to, for the record, agrees that it is a real thing that is eventually coming out. But no one that I know says, "Oh yeah, it's so close that it's going to be revealed in the next few days." So I'm off the wagon on this one. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I can see
definitely
that.
see where you're coming from. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if it did somehow pop up before E3, but I'm kind of like, I'm not quite on off as much off the bandwagon as you are, Steve, but I'm definitely closer to off it than on it. And I agree with the manufacturing timeline of this thing, at least what it would appear to be. It doesn't seem to quite hold up. So, but at the same time, these are all sources who have been trustworthy at various times in the past as well. So sometimes where there's smoke, there is fire. But for everything you're saying, Steve, I definitely see where you're coming from, and I'm kind of closer to it not happening before E3. And for the record, I do agree with you, Derek. If it isn't before E3, I don't think we'll see the Switch Pro at E3, because frankly, the Switch Pro doesn't need E3. Nintendo's going to be much happier to reveal it when there's no other noise,
Exactly.
no other distraction.
Just pop it
from
up in
everything,
September like they did for the original Switch trailer.
Right.
So that's, the more I think about it, like, if nothing happens this week, we are not seeing this thing for at least a few more months.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep. We're in the middle of Switch Pro Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But we've been going for a while on Just Nintendo. I didn't think we'd go this long. I should have known better, considering our pedigree.
Right.
But for now, I'm going to cut us off on this Nintendo predictions discussion for E3. Should have known better. This will, I guess, be our part 1. And be sure to join us for part 2, where we cover basically everybody else. Microsoft, Sega, Capcom, Square Enix, Bandai Namco, all the rest. Professor and Marianne, got to get them in there as well. And thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/gvgaming. You'll get, support us, get be part of the live audience tier for our TNT episodes, as well as voting on what subjects we should cover for our weekly discussions, which doesn't happen this time because I'm pretty sure everybody wanted us to do these E3 predictions anyway. But we'll be back very soon with part 2 of our E3 discussion. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to keep up to date with all that, and ring that bell. And until next time, take care and bye.